Welcome to the first episode of the City That Never Sleeps show. I'm your host, Brandon Pockeris, and I am joined alongside my co-host for this wonderful ride that we're going to be on, Austin Kane. Austin, how are we doing today?
What is going on? I'm doing great. I'm doing better now, though. This is awesome. I'm ready to get going. It's going to be a fun time. How
So
are you?
I'm doing pretty good. So before we get into all the fun New York sports stuff, going to give you guys a little bit of a rundown of what this show is going to be like and an introduction for myself and Austin. So, the City That Never Sleeps show, feel like you guys, if you haven't already, probably now know what the concept of the show is. We're going to be covering everything New York sports. So we got the Mets, Yankees, Jets, Giants, Knicks, Rangers, Islanders, even some Brooklyn Nets, even though, they're more New Jersey, but we'll let it slide. So that's going to be the premise of our show. We're going to be diving deep into that. Also, probably sprinkle in a little bit of some around the NFL stuff. If there's some big news that pops up, we'll cover that. So we're going to have some fun here. To introduce myself, like I said, I'm Brandon Pockeris. I am a writer for Jets Insider. I am also a writer for the Jets Lounge. I have been a lifelong suffering New York sports fan for a while. And, this show is going to give you guys an insight into how I'm hardwired, how I go about different things, and how I really have a passion about New York sports. So, Austin, why don't you give an introduction for yourself? Because I know you more than just about anyone, but I can say that you are definitely not as big on New York as I am.
Yes, sir. My name's Austin Kane. I am definitely not a New York sports fan. Uh, I don't hate them, but I am a fan of the Philadelphia Phillies, Flyers, Sixers, and Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Uh, Me and Brandon, we've been to many games with each other. We're just excited to do this. It's gonna be a great time, and I'll be able to give you a different perspective of New York sports, other
To
than a fan would.
to put it in better words, Austin is going to make sure the show doesn't turn into full-blown New York propaganda. Austin, do I have that right?
Exactly. No,
100%.
exactly right.
So let's get into the news. As you guys can see on the screen, we have our question of the day, sponsored by All Campus. Essentially, you guys can agree or disagree with this. The question is, will the Jets win more than 6 games this season? And the question specifically says the Jets will win more than 6 games this NFL season. We'll get into that as it's going on. We got a comment from Brian Daly. Thank you. We appreciate it a lot. We're really looking forward to getting this show rolling. And like I said just a second ago, let's dive deep and start looking into this past week's Jets game. Because if you've been following the Jets this year, and evidently, considering my writing and my past fandom, I have been covering the Jets very closely. And there's been really one of two things this season with the Jets. Number one, they have gotten blown out. Or number two, it has looked like a blowout loss and they've come back and win the game. So they're 2-2 on the year. And they traveled into Pittsburgh to face off against the Steelers. And they ended up winning by a score of 24-20. And there were a lot of different things that happened with this game. Good, bad, indifferent. And I think that the best place to start off with this game is Zach Wilson. Austin, what do you think about that? Do you think that's the best place to really
I would
start
say so.
evaluating?
I mean, first game back, he's your quarterback. Yes, that is definitely the first place.
Yeah. So Zach Wilson, on the day, he didn't exactly have the best quote unquote game. If you look at the overall numbers, he went 8 of 26 for 252 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Not terrible for the guy's first game back, but also, not as bad as it's been in the past. And I think the most important thing with Wilson coming back, and we'll touch a bit on the negatives after, obviously, we touch a little bit on the positives. That fourth quarter that he demonstrated was so important for the Jets, himself, the offense, everything about this team moving forward, because it showed that he is able to operate the offense. He is able to move the team when it's necessary. So, in that fourth quarter, specifically on that last drive, he went 5 of 5 for 57 yards, leading the Jets down the field against a Steelers defense that, Austin, I know you can probably agree with this, has been one of the main strengths of the team, regardless if TJ Watt's been in there or Minkah Fitzpatrick has been in there. They're one of the better ones in the league. And seeing Wilson able to fit passes into different spots and go through his reads and hang in a tough pocket with a depleted offensive line, it's a very positive sign for a team that needs those positive signs to be able to move in that direction going forward.
Yeah, I agree on the Wilson being able to move in the pocket. I mean, his escapability, if I was saying to you before we started the show, like if that was Flacco, the Jets may not win this game. Wilson played not the best game, like you said, but he did what he had to do to win a football game. His defense got on the ball when they needed to. And, I mean, he did what he had to do to win that game. Not taking those sacks, I mean, that helps so much. That doesn't put your offense back. It kills the momentum on a defense. If it's third and long, you're able to escape, run for a first down, or make a play with your arm. It kills the defense, kills fans in the stands. It helps your team so much.
Yeah, and I feel like that's what Jets fans have been looking forward to. The fact that they have a quarterback that can make things happen, that isn't a marble statue standing in the pocket, basically a sitting duck for really good edge defenders to come make a play and completely flip the course of a game. Regardless of what you think, the Jets passing 150 times or close to it in 3 games was not the best thing for this team. It's a team that, with that West Coast scheme, is built to run the football, is built to build off that run and use the play action pass. We got Frank in the chat saying, I really like the direction the Jets are going. I really like Saleh as head coach. Also, welcome. Really appreciate it, Frank. Thank you so much. And, we'll get into that in a little bit, but to keep the focus on Wilson, especially with the direction of this team, according to Will Parkinson of Turn On the Jets, great follow if you're a Jets fan. I highly recommend it. Wilson had a 90.4 PFF grade, 118 passer rating on throws 10 to 19 yards away. So what that's saying is, for a guy that had his accuracy issues in the past, and, there still were some of those in this past game. Really, one thing that comes to mind for me is that missed pass to Breece Hall that could have been like a 75, 80-yard touchdown where he threw it behind him and the defender was able to make a play. If Wilson sets his feet on that, he's able to hit that pass down the field, right? At the same time, him able to hit those middle of the field, mid-range, intermediate passes where, he's not as inaccurate and not as erratic with his throws, that's an important stepping stone. You combine that with the fourth quarter play and his ability when he led the team down the field for that touchdown drive, finding Corey Davis on fourth down, finding Corey Davis again in the end zone. These are things that are really good to see out of a guy that, let's face it, didn't have much of an offseason. He got hurt. He had to work his way back. He missed most of the preseason. And, it's his first game, against the Steelers defense. There wasn't going to be an easy matchup, but, it's something that is important and good to see. But
coming off that injury with the escapability that I was talking about, I mean, can't be too upset from this game as a Jets fan.
Exactly. But to touch on some of the negatives with Wilson, and I think you could elaborate on this a little bit, Austin, he some of that accuracy stuff was still there. Some of the passes were bouncing off the receiver's hands, and it's not all there, but I feel like the negatives aren't as pronounced with Wilson as much as, they could have been in a game like this.
I agree. I think it was the Minka pick that was almost pick six, got called out, whatever. I think it was that one. Did he airmail him or something, or just totally miss his spot? But I did think he hit his spots when he had to. I know we're talking about the bads of him, but we were talking about the fourth quarter play. And in the fourth quarter, he picked up a 3rd and 6, a 4th and 7, 3rd and 6, 1st and 20. They got 11 yards. And on a 2nd and 9, they got 17. So he did what he had to do to win the game. But the accuracy stuff is still lingering around. Some 2 picks. You don't love to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As a Jets fan, what do you think?
So, I want to extrapolate to a few more positives before we really dive deep into the poll and really get down to business about, is this Jets team built to win more than 6 games? So we got Jake in the chat saying, what's up, boys? Going to agree with the poll. They're a young team, and Zach Wilson can be really special as long as he doesn't run into his teammates' moms. You know what? I love this comment. There was a very funny way of putting the special play that the Jets ran, the Philly special type play where Berrios threw the touchdown pass to Zach Wilson. I don't know how we got 10 minutes into the show without mentioning Zach Wilson hitting the gritty. I mean, come on now.
Like true. How do we miss that?
It's just incredible. I wish I could credit the person who came up with this, but they called it the Milfy special. Take that as you will. But I think to this comment, like, the Jets are a very young team and they have a lot of really young talent, not just with Wilson, but as Brian Daly puts, I think he thinks the Jets team is better than last year, and they have some really good talent, especially in Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. The fact that the Jets are finally using Breece Hall in the RB1 role is going to be so important to this team, because I really like Michael Carter. Don't get me wrong when I say this. Michael Carter is this very elusive, shifty, hard to bring down type running back. But he's complimentary. He is a guy that suits best in being the second in command to a guy like Breece Hall, who, let's face it, is way more talented, has a lot going on in terms of his ability to run in between the tackles, receiving ability. I have no idea why it took so long for him to be this involved in every capacity, but the more they're able to rely on him, I feel like the better the Jets offense is going to be. Also, on top of that, Garrett Wilson. As an Ohio State fan, Austin, you can 100% touch on this. Wilson just has this uncanny ability to get open. It's honestly incredible to watch. Even if you watch it on the highlights, the broadcast, there's not many guys already in the league that can actually stick with this guy one-on-one. So, those are offensive positives. Austin, do you want to touch on maybe some defensive positives you saw out of the Jets?
Yeah. So I think definitely that secondary, the corner safeties, they did what they had to do. They had 4 picks this game, 1 on Mitch, 3 on Kenny Pickett, who we got to see his first action of, but we'll get into that later. Defensive line, I think they played really good. Quinton Williams is that guy for you guys. There's clips all over Twitter of him just destroying the left guard in the Steelers, blowing the backyards. And just the Jets defense, when they had to make a play, they made the play. On the Pickett's first pass, a deep ball, that's probably a ball someone Claypool's size should grab, and they did what they had to do. Marcus Joyner, 2 picks on the game. This defense, they're meshing really well. The secondary, I should say, at least. They could be great going forward and going to be huge for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, Sauce Gardner, wow. The fact that he's been this good already, There's some stats. He only allowed 2 catches for 9 yards. He has either the first or second best coverage rating for rookies. Him and Derek Stingley, obviously the first 2 corners taken, already displaying their talent. On top of that, DJ Reed's been locked down on the other side. Michael Carter II's been great in the slot. And, if Joyner and Whitehead can play closer to what they did this past week and not like how they did against Cincinnati, where they, let's face it, were complete liabilities out there, this Jets defense on the back end is going to be very, very, very talented and good and help keep them in games. And, if we look at some DVOA rankings, Jets are 23rd in offense, 25th in defense, starting to move more towards that middle of the pack range. And that gets us to this poll question. So the Jets will win more than 6 games this NFL season. Agree or disagree? We got Ted basically asking the same thing in a sense where, do you think the Jets beat the Dolphins this week coming up? I have my thoughts on this, but Austin is someone that has more of an outside perspective of this team. What are your thoughts of the Jets facing already Teddy Bridgewater, because Tua has been ruled out, and a Miami team that has been, 1, very well coached, and 2, has a lot more talent than they have had in recent years?
Yeah, this Dolphins team is, like you said, very different than what we've seen. Teddy Bridgewater in there, I think that does bring them down quite a bit. Tua's been playing really well this year. It's a big reason why they're 3-1. Like you said, Mike McDaniel, he's shown why he got that job. He's a great coach. And going into this one, I think the Jets could definitely win. They could definitely pull this game out. It's just going to be kind of what we just said, how the secondary played so great in this game. They're going to have to keep up with Waddle and Tyreek. It's one of the hardest things to do in football. We've seen it year after year. But they're going to have to figure a way to you can't fully stop them, but you got to contain it. You can't let them get the 150-plus yard receiving game.
Absolutely. And I feel like this Jets team is going to have to make some adjustments on not necessarily the back end, but especially with the linebacker position. CJ Mosley's been fine. Kawan Alexander is much better in coverage, which should come into play this week. But sometimes you have Mosley and you're down to Marcel Harris instead of Quincy Williams, who got hurt last week in Cincinnati. If they're a step slow, if they're not there as fast as they're able to, and that has happened in recent weeks, even against the Steelers, Pickett was able to hit some good passes because of the linebackers in coverage, then you're going to probably have some issues against Miami, because Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, there's going to be a lot of middle of the field stuff where if your linebackers can't play at least a role, there's that potential of getting exposed on that defensive side of the ball. The focus for me and, the defense, I feel like, is stabilizing in a sense, but that pass rush needs to be clicking, because Miami does not exactly have this vaunted offensive line. And with the amount that the Jets have poured into the defensive line in terms of Carl Lawson, obviously Quinton Williams having a great year, Sheldon Rankins, you got to get after the quarterback, especially a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, who, he has the mobility, but if you get him off platform, he doesn't always have that arm strength to get the passes to their intended targets. Also, a big, big thing, and this is going to touch on the poll question once again, is can the Jets, number one, come out with enough energy and compete in their home stadium, coming off another high-quality win, a very late win, but still a high-quality one. Because last time they had this win against Cleveland, the improbable victory against Cincinnati, they came out flat. They came out completely flat. They basically got ran out of their own stadium until they made things a little bit closer in the second half. And number two, can the Jets make the necessary adjustments against this Miami team? Mike McDaniel is a very good offensive mind. He will have a Dolphins game plan that is ready to attack the Jets' weaknesses, that will be ready to attack the types of coverages, the types of zones that the Jets are running. Will the Jets be able to adjust and be able to compensate for whatever Miami is doing? Can you have a bend don't break attitude with Tua and Waddle? Can you make sure that they're not ripping off 75, 65-yard plays that are completely flipping the game and field that in turn, and this is my last point, is putting the pressure on Zach Wilson. On offense, I feel like the Jets need to not ease Wilson back in, but make sure that run game is clicking with Breece Hall. Get him involved immediately. With Wilson, get him on the move. Don't keep him in that pocket because, as we mentioned, the Jets O-line's having injuries. They lost Max Mitchell, who, as a fourth-round rookie, not expected to start, was having a very good start to the season. That's already their fourth offensive tackle that they're down. So, in that case, even Elijah Vera Tucker, who had to slide out the left tackle in essentially an emergency purpose to not have Mr. Turnstile himself, Connor McDermott, on the field. The Jets got to scheme and game plan for, honestly, a Miami Dolphins defense that is very good. So I think we can move on to the poll question, and Ted comments, I just looked at the Jets schedule. You guys got a lot of tough games coming up. Not sure how improved your defense and offense is. And look, that is a very, very fair comment to make. Because, Austin, if we pull up this Jets schedule, after this Miami game, it is the next 4 weeks are Green Bay, Denver, New England, and Buffalo. I'll leave it to you right now to really cover what you think is going to happen over these next 4 weeks. Then I'll give my takes, and then we'll look at the rest of the schedule, lay out the wins and losses, and see if the Jets can feasibly get to over that 6-win mark.
So we already talked about the Dolphins, but the Packers game, you're going into Lambeau. It's never a great place to play. Packers defense, we know, is pretty good, really good, actually. And Jets, they're going to have to stop Rodgers. Rodgers, he's one of the all-time greats. Going in there and doing that is not ever easy. If they can do that, they have a chance to win the game. We're going to get into the record, though. Moving on to Denver, who's looked okay, I guess. I don't have too much to say about Denver, but it's going to help that they lost Javonte Williams playing against just Melvin Gordon, Latavius Murray. That'll be helpful for the Jets D-line to stop the run, not letting Judy, Cortland Sutton get those big plays like we were talking about versus the Dolphins. It's pretty similar. They're not as fast, but just pretty close. Then you get the divisional game versus the Patriots. Belichick, he doesn't like losing to the Jets. I'm excited for that one. That's one of the games I'm definitely going to put on my must-watch list. It's going to be good. I think that's all I got to say about that one. That's going to be a good game. And then Buffalo goes to New York. The Bills are scary, man. That offense, they can score almost whenever they want. And Diggs is terrifying. They're starting to actually get a run game going up there. Devin Singletary's finally taking control of that backfield, which is interesting. I think the Jets over these next four after the Dolphins, I think they could pick up one of those games. And that's not even a bad thing for the Jets. Jets fans would be happy with the win there.
Absolutely. And, looking at this Miami game, and I think that it's a very, very interesting thing to look at. The most important thing, I think, with this Jets team is keep constantly improving week over week and starting to show consistency for that next stage that they need to reach. So as someone watching the team, I feel like the next stage in terms of like next year, if all things go to plan, is that's when you finally start challenging for that playoff spot. This Miami game, if you're going to pull out one of the Miami games, win a division game for the first time under this regime, because they did not win one last year, I feel like this is the one to do it. Because Miami's on the road. They're without Tua. They've been under this immense amount of scrutiny in terms of, did they handle that situation right? There's a lot of different factors going against Miami in terms of optics and different stuff like that. With the Jets, they're coming off not only Zach Wilson leading a comeback, but also 2-2. So this is the most optimistic season they've had in, I would assume, the past 3-4 years, at least since Todd Bowles or the early Sam Darnold era. You got to keep that energy up and get that win this week. And if you don't get that win, bring it down to the wire to show, hey, this is a team that is improving, is not there just yet, but has a shot. We look at the schedule going ahead. I don't think they beat Green Bay in Green Bay. I just personally don't think that's going to happen. That's something that maybe the team next year with a bit more talent, a bit more pieces at positions of need, I feel like that's more of a win, especially with the O-line issues they're having right now. I don't think Green Bay is that victory. So I'm saying over that stretch, I think they eke out the Miami win and they lose Green Bay. So 1-1, that would put them at 3-3. Denver's my toss-up game in the sense that I don't know what they are, in the sense that if Russell Wilson starts playing his capabilities, then I feel better about their offense. The Denver defense is incredible. That's the one constant for that team. It comes down to the offense. Like, are they able to move the ball consistently? And if they are, I think Denver probably ekes it out. But if the Denver offense is still in the stagnant mode, I think it's a much closer game that the Jets could possibly steal in Denver. But for intents and purposes, I'm going to give them the loss in that one. I feel like that's a game where if they're a little bit further ahead in this rebuild, they probably win. But I feel like they're not there just yet. And then the last two games of this stretch, New England and Buffalo, I think they win the New England game at home. You have to. This is a Patriots team that, let's face it, is not really that good this year. This is a game you have to win to prove that you're not just the stomping mat, the bottom feeder consistently in this division. And that's something where you prove this Belichick, who just thrives off beating the Jets and just pummeling them in submission. Show that you're not going to roll over against them, compete, and get that win at home, because you're not beating Buffalo the next week. So I think that would take them into the bye with that'd be what, 5-6 at that point, heading into week 10, 4-5.
Sounds right. Yeah, 4-5.
Yeah, 4-5, because then the rest of your schedule for the year is New England, Chicago, Minnesota, Buffalo, Detroit, Jacksonville, Seattle, Miami. If you have 4 wins by the bye, and we have 40 boy Lou saying Jets suck. Some weeks they do this year, some weeks they haven't. So, you never know with those things. And then we got earlier on in the show, we got Wick saying, I just Googled Zach Wilson's mom. Wow, LOL. I think that's the best
awesome
statement I could come up with as well. Appreciate the love, guys. But shifting back to this Jets schedule, I really think 7 wins is the baseline I feel like that they needed to reach. And if things go the way we're expecting them to before the bye, Zach Wilson's got to have his feet under him, I would hope, way before, week 10. But I guess I'll start off, traveling to Foxborough is always going to be hard. That's kind of that coin flip one where it's like, if the Jets are way, way better than New England, then yeah, they have a shot. But if it's more of like that even keel, I feel like a split's more of that possibility. And then, well, we got Way Weary saying Miami is cooked. I don't know if they're cooked, but I think I think that there's the possibility of them dropping down below the standard of play they've had so far. Austin,
that's a good way to put it.
Looking at weeks 12 through 18, Chicago, Minnesota, Buffalo, Detroit, Jacksonville, Seattle, Miami. How many wins do you see in that group? Because I guess it depends what type of Jets team you're getting, but it's more of a, I guess
There's
what you think of these other teams.
Yeah, I think there's in the last, what is it, 6 weeks we got here, 5 weeks. There's more winnable games than there is like, oh, you're screwed, like you're gonna lose. Seattle definitely can beat them. Jaguars can beat them. Detroit can beat them. You probably lose to the Bills both times. You got the Vikings in there. I mean, maybe Kirk Cousins slips up. You get a win there if it's possible. And the Bears are awful, man. Bears are bad. So
So,
Jets will pick up that win too.
so before we move on to our final record predictions for the Jets, just want to remind you guys, all campus giving 20% off everything in our store, including hats, shirts to all of our subscribers. So make sure to check that out, guys. Really appreciate the support, and keep tuning in and keep going to all campus. Great place to get some merchandise.
Get some merch.
So shifting back to the question of the day of the Jets will win more than 6 games. I'm going to be a hard agree. And this is just looking at more so that back half of that schedule and thinking that the Jets are able to steal another game or two over this next stretch before they've reached their bye. I mean, coming into the year, everyone was like, oh, this AFC North gauntlet, the Jets will be lucky to get one win. They'll be lucky to get one win out of Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. They're 2-2. And if you asked any Jets fan, any person that even remotely covers this team, if they expected the Jets to be 2-2 after this stretch, I don't think you could have found many people that would have said yes. Just being honest here. That was not the group of teams that I felt personally, even coming into the year, that the Jets were going to get wins out of. Maybe Cleveland, but I thought Pittsburgh was going to be a loss. I thought Cincinnati, even before their struggles, was going to be a loss. And Baltimore was going to be a loss. But, they're 2-2. And they have a real shot, if they can continue to play to the standard they've had in their wins and not their losses, to really be in that mix down the stretch of the year. Not necessarily being that playoff team, but being in that mix and definitely showing that they're ready to take that step in their development. That this coaching staff, as one of our great commenters said before, is the right coaching staff. That this young talent is ready to elevate this team, not just this year, but going forward. Austin, do you think I'm on base with that? In agreeing with that, 100%. They're going to win more than 6 games? Or what do you think?
I would say 6 games. I mean, you don't want to say they're gonna slip up against the Lions, Jags, or Seahawks at the end of the year there, but it's definitely possible they slip up themselves and lose one. But I'm gonna say they win at least 2 or 3 of those. They'll steal another one somewhere. They're gonna beat the Bears. I think they'll get over the 6 mark.
So we're both agree. Oh boy, this definitely isn't gonna bite us in the butt.
It could look bad at the end, but you were saying the future, this team looks pretty good right now. And if you look at it, there's only 3 teams in the conference with a better record than them right now. Everyone's 2-2. It's all fair game right now. Everyone's going to the same place.
That is right. Everyone is going to the same place. And before we move on, we got Ted saying, besides the top teams, the rest of the games have been upsets. I can see the Jets beating Minnesota. It's funny, and as someone that's covered Minnesota as a fan before, the Vikings are this team where they always play to the level of their competition. Never above, never below. They always play to the level of their competition. You play a team like Green Bay, who is consistently one of the best teams in the league, and they beat them. And then they turn around and are playing maybe like in past years, a team like Jacksonville or Houston, and they'll be tied at halftime and tied in the fourth quarter for no explicable reason. It always happens with that Vikings team. And to that point, I 100% agree. I definitely think the Jets can beat Minnesota, especially with that game being week 13, with the Jets being hopefully rolling in terms of like their identity and having their guys there. So I can definitely see that happening. But Austin, you brought up a good point. There are some teams that are rolling. There are some teams that are doing much better than others. And there are some teams that are, maybe we could argue overachieving. What team does that speak better to than the New York Football Giants, huh?
Sounds like them.
Yeah, this is a team that,
Three
and
and
let's
one.
face it, has not had the best schedule, but they are 3-1 on the year. The Giants managed to hold off the Chicago Bears to extend their record to 3-1. And I'm going to let you kick off this one because despite all of this positivity around the Giants, there is one lingering question at the most important position of football. Who's going to play it?
That's a great question because that's going to be something they're going to have to answer very fast. The weeks, they move fast in football season. Sunday will be here in the blink of an eye, and they currently don't know who their starting quarterback is. We saw Danny Dimes hurt his ankle. Tyrod got a concussion, forcing Danny Dimes to come back into the game, which was miraculous because Saquon had to start taking wildcat snaps, and I mean he did what he had to do with those. Giants, it was a tough battle versus a bad team in the Bears. They left that window open a little bit longer than they wanted to at the end there. The missed field goal gave the Bears like one more play that turned into a 5-minute play full of laterals. They ended up getting them down though, got the win. Andrew Thomas and Saquon carries this team.
I'm glad you brought up Saquon because, we'll touch on the quarterback stuff in a little bit, but Saquon's all the way back. And the way he's played this year, he's looked like a top 2 NFL running back, and in a lot of cases, he isn't too. So
yeah,
this is a guy that dealt with so many injuries and so many different things that, he is someone that isn't just vital to their offense, he is their offense. This is a team, and I have covered Jets teams and watched Jets teams that have trotted out guys like Kembrell Tompkins on a week-to-week basis. I have never seen an NFL team struggle at a receiver position so much consistently year after year. If the Giants can get, Kadarius Toney and Wan'Dale Robinson and maybe the corpse of Kenny Golladay back onto the field, they should have a decent receiving core. Daniel Bellinger has been fine, and obviously you have Saquon. So this is an offense that should be able to move the ball when things are healthy. Problem is, things aren't healthy at the skill positions right now. You got Richie James essentially being the wide receiver 1 for the Giants. Austin, did you even know who Richie James was before the season?
I've heard the name, but not very well, no.
Yeah, because he was like the 6th wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers last year. Like it's that type of thing. It's that type of idea where it's like, first of all, Brian Daboll has come in and really changed things for the Giants in the blink of an eye. In terms of a culture sense, the Giants are a million miles better than where they were under Joe Judge. At the same time, though, they're still facing that type of adversity where it's like, okay, we don't have any of our positional guys. Our first-round pick in Evan Neal, or one of our first-round picks, is struggling mightily. Kayvon Thibodeau hasn't even played yet, and he's our other first-round pick. It's just a lot of things that are going against the Giants. So the fact that they're 3-1 is very, very big. As we move on and talk about the Giants, I have a bit of a hot take about where I think they could end up at the end of the year, but we're going to reach that point soon. Who do you think starts at quarterback this week for them, though?
I don't know if Danny if Daniel Jones can get out there, he's going to be out there for sure. Even if he has to limp a little bit, I think he's played honestly like pretty good to start this year. He's got them at 3-1. Uh, I think it'll be Danny Dimes. So used to calling him Danny Dimes.
I mean, I hope it's Daniel Jones for the Giants' sake because, Tyrod looked good in his limited time, but as we've seen throughout his entire career, don't think I've ever seen a less lucky player at quarterback. He got concussed on like his fifth play of the game after looking good. They got Davis Webb on the practice squad, so they're not going to have play a full game with Saquon Barkley as their quarterback. Although, as fun as that would be to watch,
it could work. It would work.
It would be very fun to watch. It's just against a team like Green Bay, and we'll get to that in a little bit. I don't think that's the offense you want to run, but yeah, I'm gonna lean probably towards Davis Webb, considering that the Giants play in London this week. It's a bit of a wonky week. I would give him the necessary, I would think, week to recover. Be like, look, we're sure that you can probably play and be a bit hobbled this week, but we're going to give you that extra week and let you recover and get back to being able to lead this offense in your fullest capabilities at this point of the year. I feel like
They
that's
did
the
work
most.
out Jake Fromm today.
They did, yeah. That doesn't
Mhm.
matter. Same thing applies. There were, you know what? I'm glad he brought that up. There was a time where Jake Fromm was being touted as the next big thing at quarterback at Georgia. And he was the reason Justin Fields transferred to Ohio State. And
Yeah.
that's actually a perfect segue considering this game. But I still can't believe that Jake Fromm was hyped up like that. We got Thomas in the chat saying JETS. Yes, indeed. We'll circle back. Hopefully it's a little bit of Jets talk later. But, back to the Giants. I did a bit of research into, why they've gotten off to this 3-1 start, and it's been their third down defense. Their third down defense under new defensive coordinator Wink Martindale has the second best rate in terms of getting off the field in the entire NFL. Now, is that sustainable for this defense? Who knows? Maybe it is, considering they don't have Thibodeau there. They don't have Azeez Ojulari out there. But that's something that's been very important for this team. And they could be in an even better spot once they start getting these weapons back. As much as people like the joke, Kadarius Toney is a very, very talented wide receiver when he's on the field. Wan'Dale Robinson, even throughout the draft process and watching him in college last year, is he a bit undersized? Yeah. He is a very talented football player. If the ball gets in his hands, he will make good things happen for the Giants. And if Kenny Golladay can even be 50% of himself, that's better than what he's doing for the Giants right now.
Yeah. I mean, he's not doing anything. It's bizarre, honestly. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I've seen some crazy football situations with Jets and just NFL stuff in general. The whole Golladay thing makes no sense to me. And the fact that he has that contract on top of it,
It's just,
oof, yikes.
he's sitting there getting paid millions of dollars, not to be used. Throw him the ball, do something.
Yeah, not great. But, moving on to the outlook for the Giants. We have the poll question today. Once again, remind you guys to answer if you agree or disagree with that. The Jets will win more than 6 games this NFL season. The Giants are already halfway there to that. And if we look at their schedule coming up, we'll touch on and preview this Giants-Packers game because I think it's a little bit more interesting than some people would say. But then they got the Ravens, Jacksonville, Seahawks, Texans, Lions. Then they got the Cowboys, Commanders, Eagles, Commanders, Vikings, Colts, Eagles. So that's all right. I'll leave it to you first. Would you say that's like a mid-tier schedule, a hard schedule, or an easy schedule?
I would say mid because you still get some good teams like the Ravens and the Packers. These next 2 weeks are going to be like checks to see how good these Giants really are. I mean, I know may or may not have Daniel Jones this week, but still the team is in the hole. Yeah, definitely middle class, middle tier. Honestly, when you're in the NFC East, that's what you get. But I would say mid tier.
All right. So earlier in the show, we didn't get to it, but finally get into this comment from Blue City Empire Sports. Fun fact, the New York Giants are 2-0 playing in London, and they're against the Packers this week. So that's a very interesting point, that the Giants have had a little bit of success in these London games. And, up in my school, I go to Fairleigh Dickinson. I'm surrounded by a bunch of Giants fans, very passionate fan base. And even just watching these games, I've developed a bit of a hot take, and it's not just because of the Giants. It's because of the weak sense of the NFC in general. I think the Giants could be a wild card team this year. Am I crazy for thinking that? Am I crazy for putting that out there? I'm not saying they're going to steal this division from the Eagles, because that's who I think is going to win it. But I think they could be that second wild card, or I think is there 3 wild cards this year, or is that just the craziness of baseball?
There's 3.
There is 3. Yeah, I think they could be the second or third wild card, because as we'll go through in our next segment, circling around the NFL, circling the wagons, the NFC is bad. Like, there are legitimately 3 good teams in this conference, maybe 4, and then it's basically a crapshoot, if you would call it, for the rest of that.
Yeah, it's not very pretty in the NFC. What you're saying about them getting in the wild card, I think the most important thing would be to get past the Cowboys, at least in their division. Once you hop them, I think that gives you the next step, because you have to play them twice, so you're going to have to beat them twice, or at least split. They split. They lost the other day. But I think they could, what you're saying, they could definitely sneak into the playoffs. They're not going to win the division. The Eagles are too good for that, but they definitely have the chance to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, so looking at their schedule, look, the Green Bay game, if the Giants can steal that one, I don't think they beat Baltimore, but I think they can go into their bye going in their 4 or 6-2, 5-3, like that type of range, being in that wild card hunt. Because I feel like if the Giants are the team that their record shows, and in football, a lot of the time, you are what your record is. If you can go out there and beat Jacksonville and Seattle heading into your bye week, then I think you are on the road of proving that you are that wild card type team. Because then you open a stretch off the bye of Houston and Detroit. So the Giants have a 4-game stretch of Jacksonville, Seattle, Houston, and Detroit. If they can take care of business in those games, why is there any reason that they can't be a wild card team, especially in the NFC?
There's no reason. I mean, yeah, take care of your business there. Get at least 3 of those wins, and that's huge for you, especially going into a game that would be then 1, 2, 3, 4 straight division games after that.
Exactly. They have a very conducive schedule to getting these victories and getting towards that playoff spot. If Daniel Jones can do just enough, if the receivers can get healthy, period, if Evan Neal can play closer to his draft position and start to show improvements over the year, combined with Andrew Thomas being that stud left tackle, if Kayvon Thibodeau can start to make that type of impact that he was drafted for, the Giants have a chance. They do have a chance. And quite frankly, for a team that was on the precipice of going through a full-blown just blow up, rebuild, everything in between, to potentially be in that type of spot in year 1 of this regime before you add more talent is very impressive. And the last thing I want to touch on before we, or I guess the last 2 things I want to touch on before we move on. 1, do you putting money to where your mouth is? Do you think the Giants beat the Packers this week? And number two, a little bit of a more wider sense question. Do you think Daniel Jones is the guy for this Giants team?
They're not going to beat the Packers. They are 2-0 in London. That is an interesting stat, but not this week. And Danny Dimes, I mean, that is a decision the Giants are going to have to make this year, especially with two top quarterbacks in the draft, that Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Everyone knows they're coming in the league. If you have to make a move to go get one of them, you have to decide that now. I don't think he has it going forward in the big picture of the future. He's going to be on a team somewhere. He's going to be playing football. But if you're looking for a franchise quarterback, I don't think it's him.
Are we having our first disagreement of the show? Not quite,
Wow.
but
Oh.
I think the Packers end up winning. I think Rodgers and Dobbs and AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones, and I think that the Packers offense is going to be good, but I think it's my biggest concern is more about the Packers defense, and whether it's a hobble Daniel Jones or Davis Webb, that Packers defense is going to pin its ears back and get after him. And that just concerns me. But if they're missing guys like Jair Alexander, it could be a bit of an easier road for the Giants. We got a comment from brother BKL Contreras. Through my opinion, when we face between two teams and we got lost against the Cowboys, but the Packers got struggled through 2-game matches, definitely beat them. We could definitely sneak in until the bye. Essentially, I think it's a very fair point to say that the Giants do have a shot against the Packers, because they do. They're 3-1. They haven't been a bad team this year. And quite frankly, if we look at their prior schedule, this is their first real test, because their wins have been Tennessee, Carolina, Chicago, and they barely lost to Dallas. So this is not a team that has really faced the biggest of adversity yet. And quite frankly, looking at their schedule, they face adversity in back-to-back weeks with Green Bay and Baltimore. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I'm personally giving the Giants the loss this week. I don't think it's a blowout. I think it's a close game. I think it's going to prove that the Giants are going to be working towards that wild card berth. And then in terms of Daniel Jones, before I give that answer, Ted says Jones is going to be a good backup for years to come. I think that my opinion with Jones is that if the Giants give enough talent around him, they can allow themselves to see if he is a game manager. Like a Jimmy Garoppolo, type, where if he can just guide the offense and rely on Saquon and have enough talent at the receiver position that's healthy to do enough on offense, I think he can be fine for the Giants. It's just they are probably going to be in that predicament where, are they drafting too high in terms of like the teens to get a guy like Stroud or Bryce Young? And quite frankly, like, not a college football show, but the quarterback class for this season hasn't exactly been great. It's been very sporadic. It's been all over the place. Got guys like Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, not really looking too hot. So who knows what the quarterback class is actually going to end up like. But this is the season that I think proves if Jones is the guy or not. They obviously did not pick up his option. So if they want to stick with him, they're probably going to have to sign this mini sort of extension. It's very interesting to see how it's going to play out. But I personally don't think that he's quote unquote the guy. I also don't think he is this terrible, terrible quarterback, because we haven't really seen the full capabilities of him under, let's face it, a very good offensive mind in Brian Daboll and his staff.
Yeah, it's an interesting debate. What are your thoughts on the London games? You like the London games?
If they're good matchups, I'm all in, but I feel like too many times in the past, it's been like, hey, wake up for football. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars who are starting Blake
Yeah.
Bortles at quarterback versus the Jets and Adam Gase. I don't want to watch this. Like, why are you
What was it this week? It was Dalton versus what was the game? It
Kirk?
was Cousins versus yeah.
But that ended
I
up
don't know.
being an
Give us
amazing
something
game.
crazy. Yeah,
But
that
that
was a good finish too. I thought he was gonna bang
like
that field goal.
Like, that's the thing. Give us good games, like teams that match up well with each other, that aren't necessarily the bottom feeders of that year. Like, imagine if we had a London game of like the Chicago Bears versus the Carolina Panthers. That might be one of the lowest watched NFL games in history.
Yeah, no. Give us a good game. Like I don't even know. Give us like Chiefs Bucks over there. Come on, do
Yeah.
something.
All right. So that wraps up our Giants talk. And now we're going to move into some quick hits around the NFL. And there's some point I want to start with, and this technically ties into the Giants game, but it technically doesn't because taking a little bit of a different focus. Austin, what is wrong with Justin Fields?
I don't know. He it seems like if he's not getting like his first option wide open, he's just bailing out right away. I don't know if it's the line not giving him enough time, but I feel like they haven't done that bad. And maybe it's his target or his receivers he's got. I mean, that's my only excuse for him because I'm not really sure what's going on in Chicago.
Yeah.
They just don't throw the ball.
Yeah, I wanted to just touch on this real quick before we whipped around the rest of the league. But, this quarterback class that was vaunted and so talented, and the class I'm talking about is the Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields class. There was a very long stretch for me, especially with how much Justin Fields was in the public eye at Ohio State and how good he was doing, where I wanted the Jets to draft Fields over Wilson. Obviously, my mindset changed, and I'm 100% okay with Zach Wilson and excited in some aspects to have Wilson as the Jets quarterback. But it was just like Fields just felt like that guy at quarterback. And to be quite honest, I feel like the Bears have had malpractice with him at the position. I feel like between Nagy and now the staff that, quite frankly, as Ted says, he's bad. His coach doesn't trust him to throw the ball. I think that that's a part of it. But I also think at the same time, he's not being how do I put this? I feel like he's not being put in good positions to succeed. And he hasn't been. And because of that, he's playing bad. He doesn't have the confidence. And we're seeing a potential Sam Darnold situation where we're never going to know if the guy was truly good or not. As Wick says, Fields is not that dude. You're right. He's not at the moment. But the problem with quarterbacking in the NFL, and so many reasons why these guys, quote unquote, suck or bad, can't do this, can't do that. It's a lot on the player, but a lot of it's also on the coaching, the play calling, the scheme. If you're not opening up the field for him to throw, yes, that could mean that he can't do it. He's not able to do it, and he's a bad quarterback. It also could mean that he's stunted from the bad offensive line play that they have, the lack of weapons that they have surrounded him with, and the experience that he had early on in his career with Matt Nagy, where they didn't trust him. I mean, think about it, and I know that it's so hard to think of it in these terms sometimes, but in just terms of like a normal human perspective, if everyone doesn't believe in you, if everyone says you're bad, you can't do this, and even like your coaches, and I'm saying this in sense of like a coach, is consistently like dumbing everything down to a point where you're stuck within this offensive structure and you can't do anything except just rely on a bad coach's play calling, it's tough. It's bad. It's going to hurt your development. And it's so prevalent with Sam Darnold and to an extent Baker Mayfield. It's just there's so many different reasons for why quarterbacks are bad, why they don't succeed, why they don't reach their potential. Wick says, I look at Nick Foles, another great example. If Foles within that offensive structure his first year and even other years was good, and then when the coaching changes and something changes in terms of the play calling or the structure of the team, offensive line, weapons, everything just goes out the window. So
it's crazy.
Is Justin Fields, quote unquote, that guy right now? Is he good? No, he isn't. He's probably the worst out of the entire quarterback class right now, including Davis Mills. At the same time, though, there's potential a scene change. Going to a different team could help him. You never know. And I feel it just sucks to see because he's so talented. He has the tools for everything. He just isn't trusting himself and he isn't doing enough at the position to really open things up for him and show that he is the franchise guy. And I think most importantly to this, the Bears don't trust him. And you've seen that through their actions in the offseason and this year. They don't trust him. And when the organization doesn't have trust in you, it's very hard for you to have trust in yourself as a player.
100%. You look on your coaches and your organization to have your back at all times, and when you don't feel that, then I mean you're just not going to play good. Hopefully, that may or may not be the case. Probably it looks like they don't trust him. Hopefully he can figure it out. It's a bold call on the change of scenery.
I guess we'll see if that comes to be because I don't know. I really think that's going to come to that. The Bear. It is so clear.
Eventually.
It is so clear that the Bears are ready to move on from him. You do not in the modern NFL throw the ball 10, 15 times. It is unheard of. And this is a team that is losing games, not winning. They are losing games. But before we move on to the rest of the NFL recap, I want to remind you guys once again, All Campus is giving 20% off everything in their store, including hats and shirts to all subscribers. Get in on that, guys. Like, subscribe, and keep following along. We got a lot more to come, so stay tuned, and we're having a blast already. So it is now time, and we were workshopping this name. I don't know if we're going to stick with this, but hey, it's worth a shot. The slowest whip around of NFL coverage. Austin, you want to get us started? Let's get it.
Yeah, where do you want to start?
Let's start with the Thursday night game, where and for you guys in the audience to just give a quick idea of what we're doing here. We're going to give one or two quick observations for every NFL game and maybe a reason for like why a team might be doing bad, why they are doing good, what to expect going forward. So we're going to start with the Thursday night game and take it from there. Obviously, as disclaimer, we touched on the Jets and Giants games already, so that will not be included in this whip around.
Yeah, so start off, Miami traveled to Cincinnati. They lost 27-15. I mean, I think the biggest takeaway for everyone in that game is Tua. The whole situation is kind of out of control right now. I mean, they're slowly starting to piece it all back together and figure it out. Hopefully, he can get back as soon as possible. But I think the Dolphins played good, although they lost. Holden chased four catches. He did get 81 yards, but most of that was on that last play to seal the game on a big play. The Bengals, Joe Burrow, he looked better. He looked better than he has, that's for sure. How many sacks did Miami get? That's one sack the Bengals gave up. That is improvement.
Yeah, my one takeaway from this game, RELAX. Bengals are fine, guys. It's not Panic City, I promise. That's my one takeaway. The Bengals are fine. Keep calm. Carry on with your day. Next game we got. London game, Vikings Saints. My biggest takeaway from this game in the Vikings 28-25 win. Justin Jefferson's still a top 5 NFL wide receiver. The fact of the matter is receivers are going to have bad games, and so much of that sometimes is the quarterback's ability to get the receiver the ball.
Yeah, we saw some Adam Thielen this week, which is pretty cool. Finally, makes his season debut. It seemed like they don't use Dalvin Cook right next game.
Oh, you have some investment into that one, don't you?
It's just the truth. They send him into a pit of fire, or that's it. Give him the ball outside, throw him a little screen here and there. That's all I got to say.
Next game we got 48-45 win for the Seahawks. My biggest takeaway from this game, if you play fantasy football and you see one of your players lined up against the Lions or Seahawks, chances are they're going to have a good day, because goodness gracious, I did not expect this, but the quarterbacks on the day, Geno Smith, 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jared Goff, 378 yards, 4 touchdowns. Play your guys against these two teams. That is my takeaway from this game.
Yeah, Rashad Penny, he's back again. Love to see that. Shootout, love a good shootout, especially two bad teams just going after it. Geno Smith, how you doing, Jets fans? Do you guys support him, or are you against Geno?
Oh no, I absolutely support Geno.
All right, let's go Geno.
So next game, we covered the 2 New York games. Titans Colts. My biggest takeaway, and this is the first negative one regarding this. The Colts are in trouble, and I don't know what happened. I couldn't explain to you what happened, but this is an Indianapolis team that, quite frankly, is bad. There's no other way to put it. Like, their offensive line just isn't working. Jonathan Taylor is not having the holes to run through. Not saying anything about Taylor, but he's not being helped. And the most important thing about the Colts, they got the quarterback position wrong again. I'm sorry. It's my hot take. Matt Ryan, once again, is not the guy. The Colts have been in this quarterback purgatory since Andrew Luck retired. It's like this curse of Andrew Luck. It's crazy.
It's because they booed him. It's because they booed him.
Exactly. It's crazy. It's insane, but they cannot get this position right. Crazily enough, I think most Colts fans would have no problem having Carson Wentz back right now, and that's crazy to say.
He showed he can sling it. Yeah, my takeaway from this one, I would say Michael Pittman catch the ball. He could have had one of those at the end, I feel like. That's personal.
Absolutely. And brother Contreras, I absolutely agree with you. Oh man, this Thursday night game is going to be bad.
it's gonna be a weird one. But yeah, Ted's comment. They had Rivers. That totally slipped my mind.
That is true, but it's like
it's like a rental.
Yeah, but like I feel like everyone knew Rivers was retiring at that point. But yeah, I mean, it's still that quarterback purgatory. Like, in that same sense, they haven't had a guy for more than 2 years at this point. And Matt Ryan's like 36 anyway, so he's going to be gone soon too.
They'll have to do something. I mean, for their sake, they better have Jonathan Taylor get some holes soon.
Yep. Similar to my Bengals one, Chargers win 34-24. Justin Herbert is still that guy. That's it. That's all I got. Herbert's that dude.
Eckler scored 20 touchdowns last year. Finally sniffed the end zone this week, like 3 times or something.
Yep, as my
as my fantasy team
would would say. We got by that one by the skate of our teeth.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
next game, Falcons Browns. My takeaway from this game is the Browns need to fight to stay above water until the man who shall not be named returns at quarterback, because if they're able to do that, they should have a shot at least a wild card spot, but it's going to be tough sledding. Myles Garrett, very glad he's okay, but him being in that car accident, being out for this game, along with Jadeveon Clowney, that hurt their run defense. And the Falcons, with Caleb Huntley and Tyler Algier, a rookie and a guy off the practice squad, absolutely gashed the Cleveland defense.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. I think a question they should probably try and answer is for Cleveland is who their number one wide receiver is going to be. Like, can they just pick someone like Amari Cooper, 1 for 9 after balling on Pittsburgh the week before? Njoku's been a beast, though. You have to give that to him. He's been like the staple of this offense besides Chubb and Hunt. It's pretty crazy.
Absolutely. Commanders, Cowboys. Cowboys won 25-10. Cooper Rush has done a fantastic job of keeping the Cowboys season alive. That defense is no joke for Dallas. Micah Parsons is a stud.
I know we were just talking about Colts fans rather having Wentz, but it's just not that great either.
100%. Next game, Eagles, Jaguars. Taking a more of a sidebar approach, I think Jacksonville is a team to be reckoned with because the Eagles are an insane team and they hung with them the entire time.
Yeah, right off the bat, going up 14-0. I thought they had something going there. Then they kind of just stalled out. But that's all right. They're a young team, very young team. They look really good, and I think they're going to be good going forward. And the Eagles are very good.
Bills, Ravens. My takeaway: be ready for this matchup in January. That's it. This is going to be a playoff matchup, 100%.
Me too. But where'd the Ravens go in the second half? I mean, it's pretty bad. They have to win that game.
I guess my second takeaway, and this is the only game I'll do this for, if the Ravens did not have Lamar Jackson this year, I don't think they would have many wins.
Pay the man.
Pay the man. Exactly. Next game, Cardinals Panthers. Quick takeaway. I think that the Panthers will not have their head coach next year, and I think that the Cardinals may not have their head coach next year. These are two teams that do not look very good.
Darnold's hurt, but in a few weeks, when does that decision start coming up?
When the head coach gets fired after this game.
Fair enough.
Maybe that's a scalding hot take. That shouldn't be a hot take, but we shall say. The last 4 games, Raiders beat the Broncos 32-23. Takeaway from that one, Denver's a very interesting team, and what do you call it? The Raiders aren't as bad as their record was. They have more than enough talent to overcome the struggles that they've had early on this year.
Yeah, Raiders will be good. They can turn this thing around. Just get some wins.
Yep. Packers, Patriots, Green Bay's that team, and New England is going to have some struggles if Bailey Zapp has to go for any more than one game. Chiefs, Bucks.
Yeah.
41-31. Tampa needs their guys back. It's simple as that. And Pat Mahomes is the most underrated player in the NFL somehow. No idea. And the last game, 49ers dispatched the Rams 24-9. My takeaway from that one, and to wrap up the NFL talk, can Matt Stafford not just look at Cooper Kupp? Because that is hurting their offense. I know Kupp's insane, but the Rams are having a lot of struggles right now.
Yeah, the Rams, the 49ers just like they have their number every single time. It's pretty ridiculous. Uh, they own them. That's what I gotta say.
Absolutely. We got brother Contreras saying Carolina coach came really bad between Giants and they have different players between defense. Yeah, I don't understand what Matt Rule has done at all. There was a point in time, and I will admit this, I wanted him to be the Jets coach over Adam Gase. Quite frankly, I guess it's better that Gase was the coach because he flamed out that much faster. So cool. And then we got Jill saying F the Ravens. Take that as you will. And then another question from Ted. Would you guys say Rams are the biggest frauds? That is a very good question.
That's a good question.
And I think the answer is yes, because of expectations matching results. And the expectations were that the Rams were going to be this playoff team again, like a very high competing playoff team. And quite frankly, they're not that right now.
Yeah, they coming off a Super Bowl win, you have the target on your back. Everyone's coming for you. And you have the expectation, like you said, of another Super Bowl run, and they're just not hitting that right now.
Yep. And that wraps up our NFL talk. So stay tuned for next week for all the great NFL talk. But now it is time to talk about New York baseball. I say this in a very slow voice. I am excited, but I am also sad because the Mets dropped a 3-game series to the Atlanta Braves, which, for all intents and purposes, barring the Marlins becoming a juggernaut and the Braves forgetting how to play baseball, will mean that the Mets are heading to the wild card round. I'll start off with this this sentiment that I have. There's a lot of people online saying that the Mets collapsed. And, if you define collapse in a sense like, oh, they should have had the division wrapped up already in September. Sure. They dropped a series to the Cubs. They lost a few games to Washington. Lost a few games here to Miami. Yeah, they probably should have had a bigger lead in this division. At the same time, though, this Mets season as a whole was not a collapse. This is a team that has won 98 games. They look like one of the top 3 teams in the NL. And as a matter of fact, they would have had no shot of blowing this division if the Braves did not go on a win pace of 114 games. For the better part of 3 months, the Braves essentially did not lose. The Mets would have had to play perfect. I say this again. Perfect baseball to not blow this division in terms of a long period of time. But in terms of this series, the Mets dropped the ball. They lost it. They didn't come to play. Their aces got hit by the Braves. Dansby Swanson had one of the series of his life. Matt Olson, Austin Riley.
Paid.
The Braves lineup showed up. The Mets lineup didn't. The Braves pitching showed up. The Mets pitching did not. It's simple as that. Let's face it. The Braves are probably the better team. They are the defending World Series champions. But don't discount this Mets team. This is a Mets team that is still pretty good. They are still, like I said, in my eyes, a top 3 team in the NL. And they will be able to make some noise in the playoffs. As the resident non-Mets fan here, Austin, what is your perspective on this past series?
They did it again.
Don't know. You know what? Don't know. Don't bring that into this. They did not do it again. They lost one series.
Yeah, they did not do it again. They lost the series, but it just sucks that they had to lose this series for Mets fans, because you go into this series with DeGrom and Scherzer on the mound, you're like, we're winning at least one of these games. You'd think in 2, and you'd hope for the sweep, but it went the other way. They hit on Scherzer pretty good, like 9 hits, 4 runs. DeGrom, he gave his runs, not as many hits, 11 Ks. He still looked like DeGrom. This team it sucks that this had to happen right before you go into the wild card series right now. Just bad timing. But I think you still have Scherzer, you still have DeGrom. If to go into this wild card series, you're going to play either the Padres or the Phillies, and it's probably going to be the Padres though. But you need your guys, Scherzer and DeGrom, to pitch the way they do, and you need the bats to wake up a little bit. And against this Padres pitching rotation, that's almost at the best it's been all year. It's not great. But on the other side of things, the Padres, they have been that great on the hitting side, like Soto and stuff, that recently either. So it'll be interesting going into the wild card series.
Absolutely. I think that essentially sums up everything. I think that sums up how the Mets are, looking in terms of their outlook going forward and how that looks. In terms of the Yankees have had this division locked up for a good minute. It's just kind of getting ready for their postseason series. And, I think that this is a team that has a lot of talent, and it should come down to basically them and the Astros, in my eyes, for what ends up being the AL pennant. Are you ready to go into the MLB postseason outlook?
Yeah, I'm ready. Just to touch up on the Yankees real quick. Hopefully for them, they can finish the season strong. They got Cole's final start tonight. And I know we were saying before, where's that Judge home run at? Number 62. Where are you?
Oh, but so to cut in real quick, we got Chase in the chat saying, is Mecole Hardman a drop now? What do you think about his future fantasy outlook? Mecole Hardman has been a guy that I have wanted to be successful, that I have wanted to be a huge part of this Chiefs offense. I think with the way they're spreading the ball around, I don't think he is a guy that's worth holding on to. He's going to have a blow-up week here or there, but he's not someone that you can consistently rely on going forward.
Yeah, other than Kelsey just takes up so much of this offense, and then they spread it out. Other than that, CEH got his touches, but other than those two, really, you never know what's going to happen on the Chiefs offense.
We do it all here on the city that never sleeps. We touch on football, baseball, fantasy. We'll cover everything. But to touch on your point with Judge 62, oh my goodness, how mad do you think college football fans are that it keeps cutting into these games as they're just trying to watch their favorite teams? And I guess a little of a conspiracy theory. Do you think that the SEC fans put a hex out on Aaron Judge to not get this last home run?
Maybe it's got to happen soon. He's got 3-4 games left. He needs it. Honestly, with the whole college football cutting in the commercials thing, it's a big deal. It's a very big. It's going to be a very big home run for the Yankees and Judge himself. But if people wanted to watch Aaron Judge and potentially hit the home run, they'd be watching it. No need to bring it into the college football world.
Exactly. And now it's time for the postseason outlook. So it's going to be very interesting in terms of, the NL picture, because I've mentioned this before. I think the NL is way, way, way stronger than what the AL is. You look at the NL, I think the full playoff picture is set. The teams that will be in there are the Dodgers, the Braves, the Cardinals, Mets, Phillies, and Padres. What those matchups look like, couldn't tell you, because as of now, it is not very likely, but the Mets still have a chance to take the division. The Braves got shut out by the Marlins yesterday, 4-0, and the Mets are currently up 3-0 on Washington. So, by some miracle, and I will say it's a miracle because it is true, the Marlins sweep the Braves and the Mets sweep the Nationals. The Mets still win the NL East. there was a fun stat that I saw on Twitter earlier. The Braves have not been swept at all this entire season. If that doesn't tell you how good that team's been on a sidebar, then I don't know what does. But, you know, as a Mets fan that's watched this, it wouldn't surprise me if this came down to the last game of the year, because that's just baseball and that's just what happens. But for all intents and purposes, we're going to operate, at least for the NL picture, off the fact that the Braves have the division and the Mets have the wild card. So, Austin, you have that playoff bracket pulled up. What do we got for the potential first round matchups?
Yeah, so starting the NL, St. Louis Cardinals would be hosting the Phillies. That would start on Friday, and the Mets would host the Padres. On the other side in the AL, Guardians, they host Tampa Bay, and the Blue Jays would host Seattle.
All right. So Cardinals, Phillies. What are we thinking about that matchup? Who takes it and why?
I mean, I'm gonna go with the Phils. That's my team. It's my boys. Our first playoff appearance like 10 years. So it's been pretty awesome day. Nothing's hurt me. But getting into the series, it's gonna be a good matchup. I think you got Arenado, Goldschmidt. They obviously lead the Cardinals, and then on the Phillies, you got two aces. You got Nola, Wheeler. Nola showed last night why he was an ace, why he could be an ace. Wheeler, we know what he can do. Honestly, I think if they can just contain Arenado and Goldschmidt, don't give up like a 5-run inning somewhere, and the bullpen can stay consistent and lock it in at the end of games, they could win this series as long as the hitting doesn't slump on them as well. It's time for, I hate to say it, Harper. He's been slumping a little bit recently this past month. If he can wake up, this offense can get going, they can win this series.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with this. I think it comes down to the Phillies pitching versus the Cardinals offense, because I'm operating on this expectation that the Phillies offense is showing up. If the Phillies offense doesn't show up, it changes everything. But the Phillies offense, I think, is better than the Cardinals pitching in terms of, I think they'll be able to hit whoever the Cardinals throw out in those first two games. They just need Nola.
Their rotation.
They need Nola and Wheeler to show up and be the guys that they have been for the majority of this year. And if that happens, I think the Phillies move on. I think that the Cardinals are a very dangerous team if they start clicking. There's the fun saying of the Cardinals devil magic that they always have in the postseason. I think that the narrative storyline and the craziness of baseball, of having Albert Pujols and his last ride with Wainwright and Molina, I feel like there could be some craziness that happens with that. But operating purely on an analytical perspective of what this means, I think that the Phillies have the edge in more categories. If the game gets to the Cardinals bullpen, though, and that's what the Phillies, I feel like, can't let happen, if there's close games with the Cardinals bullpen versus the Phillies bullpen, I think that's the one edge that the Cardinals are going to try to exploit, because that Cardinals bullpen is legit. Ryan Heisley is an insane pitcher, and I think he will be able to shut down the Phillies if it reaches that point. But I'm going to predict, and this could be our first prediction of the Say That Never Sleeps show for the MLB postseason. I got the Phillies winning in 3.
I don't know, that they're known to disappoint, but they're not going to do it here. Phillies in 2, Wheeler Nola deal, hitting hits, bullpen shuts it down.
All right, so next matchups, Mets Padres. I'll be short and quick with this. If the Mets pitching pitches up the par, I don't think this is a tough series for the Mets. Yeah, they've had their struggles hitting Yu Darvish. Yeah, Joe Musgrove is legit, but if Scherzer and DeGrom are what they're supposed to be, if Alonso and Lindor do what they're supposed to, if Nimmo hits, if Marte comes back, I think the Mets win this series in 2. And could this bite me in the butt? Sure. But I truly think that the Mets are going to be healthy enough to show that they are the legit playoff team the legit 100-win team that they have shown that they are this entire season.
Yeah, I mean the Mets, they're going to be a 100-win wild card team. They're on the tier of a division winner. I mean, they still could win it. We know that, but yeah, like you said, Grom, Scherzer, they can go out there and end the series right away. As long as the Mets can give them a little bit of run support, that's all you got to ask for. Maybe like 3 runs, and those two can pitch the whole game for you. You'll be good. And you got
Exactly. Yep. And before we move on to the AL, just remind you guys one more time, all campus is giving 20% off everything in our store, including hats and shirts to all our subscribers. So make sure to like, subscribe, and get that free merch, guys. Come on, let's get it. So moving on to the AL. What's that first matchup? You said Rays Guardians?
Guardians, yeah, in Cleveland.
Okay. The AL is tough for me because whereas it's so close in every aspect for the NL, the AL is like it's close in like the bottom tier, and then it's just the Yankees and Astros up here. So the way I'll look at it is I think that the Guardians are this wild card team because they have so much young talent, so many legit prospects combined with like guys that have been performing this year that it's gonna reach a point where if they perform, they could go on a run because it's just a bunch of unheralded, overlooked type guys. Those are the type of teams that are the most dangerous sometimes. And at the same time, I feel like the Rays have just been the steady team that has been consistently decent this entire year. And by decent, like a playoff team. So I'm leaning towards the Guardians in 3, but I feel like it's more of a coin flip. Austin, where are you leaning?
I want to go with the Rays. Just they're always a fun team to watch. I currently reside in Tampa, but I'd say the Guardians. I mean, I think they played better all around baseball this year. I mean, change the name. Everyone wants to see new team in the playoffs. Why not? I guess they're both in the playoffs, but win in the playoffs. Guardians first playoff series win ever. I'm gonna go with it. Go Guardians.
Not the organization as itself, but the first under the team name of the Guardians. Yes, that would be correct.
Yeah.
What do we got for the next matchup?
We got Seattle, Toronto.
That's in Toronto, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's going to be such a fun series. It's just these two fun teams.
Yeah.
I am going to go with Seattle with the upset because this is a team that has broken one of the longest playoff droughts in sports. And I think my prediction is the Mariners win in 2. Hot take off the back of Julio Rodriguez. The stud center fielder taking the reins and becoming that first true Seattle baseball superstar since Ichiro and Griffey.
Yeah. I mean, you know me, Mariners. I like them. They've been like the second team of mine. But I don't know, the Blue Jays, man. They've been through a lot this year. I feel like they started this not that great. They fired their manager halfway through the season. They just weren't hitting expectations, and they just start turning it on. I just think they have the star power on the Blue Jays will be too much for the Mariners to handle.
I don't know, man. I think a 1-2 punch of Castillo and Kirby is going to be very, very tough for the Blue Jays.
I hope you're right. I'll be cheering for the Mariners, but I'm gonna say the Blue Jays pull this one out in 3.
All right, so is that our first differing prediction for the MLB playoffs?
I think so. I mean, the winner of that series gets the big bad Astros. So,
all right, so
really fun to watch.
All right, so do you want to go? You want to go through the whole MLB playoffs, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So what do we have set up for the NL? We had the Mets and Phillies advancing. So that means what? Mets, Dodgers, and Phillies, Braves, right?
Yep.
All right. I'll put the ball in your court here. Where do you want to start
Thanks.
in the NL?
Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's go with the Phils and the Braves down to Atlanta. I don't even know, man. This is interesting because they didn't. I wouldn't say own us like the Braves didn't own the Phillies as much as the Mets own the Phillies this year, but I'm pretty sure they still beat up on us a little bit. Actually, no, we might have split the series. Either way, talking right now, the Braves are good, man. That lineup is it's just deep and it's good and it's scary. Austin Riley, Matt Olson, Acuna. The thing is, they won a World Series without Acuna. I don't see why they can't do it again. Unfortunately, what are these series out of 7, 5? The DS.
I think the DS is 5.
I think so too.
We got
Go Braves in 5.
yeah, we got Brother Contreras agreeing with Austin. I'm still going with Seattle, but he says Toronto's a tougher team between pitcher and bat. I tend to agree. I like the top end talent of the Seattle pitching staff a little bit more than Manoah and I think it was Barrios or Manoah and Gosman, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, Gosman.
Yeah, this Phillies Braves series is very interesting to me because the Phillies are this team where they can be so high and they can be so low. And the Braves have consistently been good for the majority of this year. I want to say that the Phillies have a really good shot to upset, but after seeing what the Braves did to the Mets this past weekend, I have to go Braves in 4. I don't think it reaches the full 5. I just think that postseason experience is so important, and the Braves' basically entire roster already has been through that run that made them reach the World Series. So
yeah, exactly.
I think it's
very experienced versus inexperienced. We have JT. He never made the playoffs. He had the second longest drought. And Gene Segura, who had the longest drought of not making the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And shifting over to the Mets-Dodgers series, this is tough because the Mets have shown they can beat the Dodgers, but the Dodgers are also by far the best team in baseball this year.
You remember that Chiefs-Rams game, Monday Night Football? This is what this baseball series reminds me of. It's just going to be a bunch of studs out there playing baseball. It's going to be a good series, and I don't know who's going to win it.
I'm so deep in thought because there's a pathway for both these teams to win and both these teams to lose, more importantly. Like, this isn't like the Mets have no shot type series. It's more of I think that both teams equally could win and lose. I think I'm just gonna ride with the Mets in 5. That's such a coin flip. It's such a coin flip for me. And I think the biggest factor is I like the Mets bullpen better than the Dodgers bullpen. The Dodgers have probably the better lineup and probably have the better probably starting pitching is probably a bit of a wash, especially because of the back end. The Mets bullpen is better than the Dodgers bullpen, and I'm looking at Edwin Diaz and Adam Ottavino. The Dodgers do not really have that lockdown guy at the end of games to really seal the deal in a lot of cases, but in a lot of times they don't have to do that because they're beating teams by 4.
Yeah, this series, I mean, I'll make a prediction. I'll play devil's advocate. Dodgers in 6.
How would it be in 6?
Oh, I'm thinking a 7-game series again. 5 or 4. I'm sorry again.
All right, Dodgers in 4. There
Dodgers in 4.
Advocate. All right, so that moves us to the AL. Who's Houston playing, and who are the Yankees playing?
It will be well. I went with Toronto. You went with Seattle. So one of them's playing Houston, and then the Guardians would get the Yankees.
So basically, to put it in a very short term thing, the Astros and Yankees are playing in the ALCS. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I mean, the MLB needs it. Just let them face off at each other in the
I
CS.
just think, and in all seriousness, in terms of Seattle, I feel like is a year away from being on that echelon or like reaching that type of echelon where it's like they're not ready to beat a Houston team yet. I that's my opinion. I love the Mariners this year. They're so fun to watch. They're just a year away from competing with that type of team. And who's the Yankee series? Would that be the Guardians?
Guardians.
Yeah. The Guardians have a shot to put up a fight against the Yankees. I just that Yankees lineup is so good. Aaron Judge is incredible. The only way I see them slipping up is if the pitching falters. And yes, that's a possibility, but Garrett Cole's been there. Nestor Cortes has been great, and it would just probably have to come. Yeah, it would have to come down to the bullpen essentially to blow that game. I don't think that happens. I think we get our rematch of Yankees, Astros, ALCS, and let's stay there. Let's stay there, and then we'll go back to the NL because we have the same prediction for ALCS. I'm taking Astros in 7. I'm rolling Astros in 7. I'm feeling really good about that prediction. And I just frankly think the Astros are the most well-rounded team in all of baseball. I think, and we'll reach that point in a little bit, I don't think there's many, if any, teams that can even match what the Astros can do with their lineup, their pitching staff, and their bullpen. I think it goes 7 because I think the Yankees are also that good, but I think the Astros edge them out and make it back to the World Series once again.
Personally, this is going to be a great series. It's going 7 games. Who's winning? That's the interesting question. You're right. The Astros are the most overall, the best team put together in the league right now. I personally just have a feeling that the Yankees can do it this year. They can get by them or whatnot, and they will advance. I think it's going to be Yankees in 7. I think their bullpen and their starters, like you said, just have to hang tight, keep doing the best you can out there, I guess. It's going to be interesting what they do with their playoff roster. Chapman, will he be there? Who knows? Britton just went down, so their bullpen's banged up already.
And then we make it to the NLCS. I'll give my picks first. What do you call it? I got the Mets over the Braves. I'm riding with the squad. I'm riding with the Mets all the way to the World Series. I think that they get their redemption, but I think the series goes 7 in what ends up being, along with the Yankees Astros series, some of the best baseball that has been played the entire 2022 season. I think it's a slugfest. I think it's a battle back forth, and it goes down to the very last game and potentially very last inning. I've been saying this all year. The Mets and the Braves are basically the same team in a lot of senses. They are on the same talent level, and they are 2 of the best teams in the NL. You have seen that with their matchups this year. Outside of the sweep, the games have been very back and forth. And even in the games, there was never a blowout by either of these teams out of any of the games they played this entire year. They have been close. They have been battles. They have been decided late in the games. I got the Mets in 7 to take on the Astros. Austin, who do you got? Dodgers or Braves?
I'm going with the Dodgers, and I think it'll be 6 games. It's going to be a good series. Braves are a good team. Dodgers are a great team. I think it's gonna. I don't know what the difference maker of the series is gonna be though. It's just something. Someone's gonna slip up somewhere. Dodgers be able to get a extra game up or something on them, and the Dodgers will win. We'll finally see what I think the MLB wants in the World Series: Yankees Dodgers.
And that brings us to our World Series predictions. I got the Mets Astros, and I can't pick against the Astros this year. Look, I'm diehard Mets fan. If the Mets end up winning this series, I'd be thrilled. But what it comes down to for me is, path throughout the playoffs. Like, look, at a certain point in time, teams can run out of gas. And I think at this point, the Mets having that extra series will probably come back to bite them if they make it this far. I got the Astros in 7, though, because I think the Mets are still able to compete, but I think they just run out of gas towards the end. Even realistic to say potentially Houston in 6. But I think the Astros are just built for that World Series this year. And I think the Mets put up a valiant effort, but they can't get it this year. And then they're able to bounce back and start pushing for that again next year.
Yeah, so for me, I got the Yankees Dodgers. The two big banks of each league. It's a lot of money on the field. I think the Yankees, though, I think their hitting will just come up huge here. I think the Dodgers, on the other hand, their lineup's just as good. It's going to be a lot of runs. I'm just thinking, like, if the Yankees didn't trade Montgomery, how much better they would be right now, like just a better position. And that's going to come back to bite them in like game 4, whatever, game 3, game 4, game 5, where they could have used them, and they're going to lose like a game with some bad pitching, maybe 2 games, and the Dodgers will get it out in like 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think that's a great prediction. So going forward, guys, we will have these written down. We'll be coming back to these as the MLB playoffs go on to see what we got right, what we got wrong, and keep giving you guys reactions to the New York postseason outlooks and baseball playoffs in general. So, Austin, we got just about around 12 minutes left in the show. It's been a fantastic show. Great first show, having a blast. But I want to close out the show as we got brother Contreras saying Yankees Dodgers is going to be the matchup, Yankees in 7. Definitely think that's a very realistic prediction. Think the Yankees definitely have potential to make it. Want to close out the show with some future predictions in terms of some NFL stuff. So, we went over a lot of different things today. Jet stuff, Giant stuff, NFL in general. If you could give 3 hot takes, Austin, not any more, not any less, but 3, what would your hot takes be and why?
Give me some time. Quick second here. You got any off the top of your head you want to throw out there?
I asked you first.
I need a second. I'm going to say Lamar and the Ravens lose like 3 more games max this season. They just start balling like crazy and become the number 1 seed in the AFC.
That is, you know what? Is that much of a hot take, though? I feel like it's between them
I guess
and
not.
Buffalo right now.
Yeah. Well, the Chiefs are up there, too.
That's true. Never
Chargers
mind. You know
will
what?
win their games. It's not that hot. I'm just getting warmed up. It's number 1.
It's a mild take.
Yeah.
My first one, I think that the Jacksonville Jaguars are a playoff team. Not just a playoff team. I think they win the division. The AFC South is theirs for the taking. Tennessee does not look that good. Indianapolis, we know their issues. And Houston, I think, is a quarterback away. Or a quarterback and a few extra pieces away. In the meantime, Austin, the Mets are up 4-0. So looks like their offense can come alive
There it is. It's heating up now. So my second one, I'm going to say San Francisco 49ers. They'll be back to where they were last year, another conference championship run. I think their defense is very good. We saw last night and shut down the Rams. And then their offense, I mean, Jimmy G, he knows the system better than anyone right now, and he looks good doing it. Kittle has rarely got involved too much, so once they get him going, it's another element to their game that they can just keep adding to.
My second hot take is that in this absolute gauntlet that the Steelers face, where they play the Bills, Buccaneers, Dolphins, and Eagles, I say the Steelers win at least two of these games. Because
For sure.
Kenny Pickett is going to be the guy. These are hot takes. These are not supposed to be, I'm going to rest on my laurels. I think Kenny Pickett, this might be a little bit too hot, but I think the Steelers take the game against Tampa, and I think they take the game against Miami.
You know what? You just sparked my third hot take.
What?
You sparked my third hot take with that.
That's good. We'll get there. I think Kenny Pickett's the guy. More importantly, I hope I am not stepping on your feet here. I think George Pickens gets unlocked by Mr. Pickett because as he showed against the Jets on guys like DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, he's that guy. He is going to, and this is a minor hot take under the scorching hot take of Pickett. I think that George Pickens is the Steelers' number one receiver by the end of the season. I also think that Deontay Johnson will be involved and that Chase Claypool will be phased out of the offense at some point. But the second hot take before I get to my last one, Kenny Pickett leads the Steelers to at least 2 wins in this gauntlet.
I like it. Should I go my third?
Yeah, go for it.
All right, yeah. Arizona Cardinals will have a top 5 pick in this year's draft. Hot.
Oh, okay. Now, I need you to explain this one because I'm not necessarily saying I disagree, but I need to hear the full reasoning on that.
Well, honestly, I think Kyler at some point he's just gonna go bad. He's just gonna go real bad, which is possible. I think we all think that there's some potential for that. I don't think their defense is that great at all. They've given up the 4th most points in the league so far. They keep getting torched and stuff. It's just not going to be good. D-Hop does come back soon, which is pretty good. I like that hot take from my mother. You think he would? I mean, he gave all his love to the game. It's all gone. All his love is gone.
If things got very bad for Tampa, I think it'd be more realistic, but I don't think so at this moment.
My third hot take was going to be that the Bucs missed the playoffs, but there's no one in that division that's going to beat them.
So is that the hot take? You think Kyler falters out and that the Cardinals end up with the top 5 pick?
Yeah, but that means they would have to be almost worse than Seattle, which is
okay.
Interesting discussion for itself.
Okay.
But we'll see.
Do you think Cliff gets fired in that case?
If they get a top 5 pick, he is gone.
Yeah. All right. So my final hot take, and I want to make sure this is a bit of a scorcher. I think that, and we'll get to this, I'm deep in thought here. I'm trying to formulate the best one possible.
Yeah, no, it's tough.
I think that the Broncos missed the playoffs completely, and Nathaniel Hackett is fired by the end of the season.
How bad has he been throughout the first few weeks?
It's like
it's bizarre, some of the calls and decisions he's made.
And like here's my reasoning with this, right? It's not just the fact that Denver has been bad. I think that it's the fact that they've been inept in some cases. Russell Wilson looks terrible most of the time. And quite frankly, I don't understand how, this team is better than the Chargers, who have showed that, yeah, we're good. Like, they're fine. The Chiefs are the Chiefs. And I think even this Raiders team that beat them is going to go on a bit of a streak, because I think Carr is better than what he showed so far. So
Do you think he's better than Russell Wilson?
I think this year, yeah, because I don't get it. Russell Wilson cannot throw middle of the field. And for NFL teams, if they just start stacking the outsides and forcing Wilson to go middle of the field, it's not going to work. It's honestly incredible. And I don't see how the Broncos, unless they rely on their defense, which is possible, I don't think they make the playoffs.
It's definitely possible.
So on that note, we're going to take some questions to close out the show. First one we got. Kazi, Flex, Godwin, Sutton, CD, or Amari Cooper? My first question for you is, what type of league is this? PPR or standard? If it's standard, I'm going with probably Sutton, because I think he has the best shot for yards and then touchdowns. And then I'm going CD Lamb. Cooper and Godwin are a bit up in the air because there's just too many variables with that. PPR, I'm probably going with Godwin or CD. Brother Contreras, Broncos will be eliminated. Yes, I am rolling with that. I will stick to that. If I am wrong, you guys have every right to call me out on that. Joe Cat, Zach Wilson looked great in the second half. Yeah, as we touched on in the show, Wilson looked a lot better in the second half. He essentially carried the Jets down the field their last two drives, and he showed that type of talent of why he was the second overall pick in the draft.
Yeah, Wilson looked great in the second half. Joe Cat, you're not wrong. He did what he had to do, win that football game.
And then this one, Sauce legit or nah? I'm gonna be honest. If people have any other opinion besides him not being legit, I tend to be a very laid back person most of the time. But unless you're literally not watching the games, I don't know how you can say he's not legit. Like, this is a guy that has shut down multiple good receivers. He's made incredible plays on guys like Jamar Chase already. And he's having that Patrick Surtain impact for the Jets on the outside, which is the entire reason they drafted him.
Yeah, no, Sauce is a dog. He's got potential for a great future ahead, and he will. He's going to be one of the best corners in the game, if he isn't already.
And then the last question we'll take from Joe Cat once again. Jets fan here. I'm not looking for playoffs. I'm content with 7-10. 7-10. Show some growth. Saleh still got to get better at being the head coach. Completely agree with everything you said here. 7-10 would be a great step in the right direction for this team. And if they show enough growth, they have enough to move forward in the next year. And then 2023, in my eyes, would then be the playoff year for this team. So on that note, that brings us to the end of the first episode of the City That Never Sleeps show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Make sure to catch us here every Tuesday night from 4 to 6 p.m. Going to have lots of fun New York sports coverage. Can't wait for Knicks basketball, Nets basketball, Rangers and Islanders hockey to get rolling. it's going to be a fun time, and we're very excited for you guys to be along this journey with us. So, Austin, you got any closing remarks?
This is a lot of fun. Ready for next week. Shout out everyone in the comments and stuff. We appreciate it. See you next Tuesday.
All right. On that note, we'll catch you guys next time. Have a great night.